was petrified and not prepared to accept that God might possibly want me. Immediately before going for discernment and through the whole process, I was teaching, but actually I felt called a long time before that. Immediately after I'd done my degree, I went on a pilgrimage to Taizé. As I was sat on the hillside eating my lunch one day, I broke a cracker, and in my mind's eye I saw my hands with cassock and surplice breaking the bread. And at that moment I was petrified and not prepared to accept that God might possibly want me to be a priest. Immediately I actually asked for some confirmations from God, some little signs, and fortunately, or unfortunately, he gave them to me. And then I actually spoke to one of the nuns at Taizé, who told me that everybody has a religious experience at Taizé, and so I shouldn't maybe take it that seriously. I should maybe pray about it. And so I tried to avoid it for quite a long time, 9 years in total. My church that I grew up in was not particularly in favour of women in ministry, and so I had not been sure. And so I doubted my call, and it took quite a long time for me to think, actually, A, God might call a woman, and B, despite my slightly crazy zaniness and unsuitability as I saw it, God actually might call me. And so through years of teaching and continuing to go to church, and then experimenting with reader ministry to see whether that would be enough for God, I came to the conclusion that actually it was never going to be enough, and that what God was calling me to was ordination and priesthood. What I particularly love is seeing people who are Christians who come to church every week, who are not particularly confident to move into areas of church ministry that they never believed they could. I have such a love of encouraging people and such a desire to see people flourish. And I think that through the techniques I learned in teaching, using open-ended questions, using supportive language, just being positive, I can, in church, encourage the parishioners in the way that I was able to encourage pupils. Through my sort of discernment process, really, I did do reader ministry, and what I found was absolutely fantastic was that going through the process I met so many people who have such different calls in church life. And so I've got friends now who are pastoral ministers, who work with spirituality in their churches, who have done different fresh expressions training and all sorts, because actually we are all individual and we all have our identity in Christ, and hopefully, people can flourish in whatever area God's calling them to. And I just think it's wonderful that people can, alongside what they feel, maybe they do their vocation at work, but they can also live their vocation through their ministry in church.